welcome everybody to another edition of Hot Program. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast, and I am joined by a man who usually sends me an introduction, a man who needs no introduction. How you doing today, my one black friend?
I am well. I am nestled warm in my home in California. I don't know if you can see behind me. There's just a slight hint of a fire in my fireplace with many logs in it, which are not bursting into flames.
Victory, 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 victory.
Victory.
It's logs from Africa right now. Logs from Africa right now. Not burning. Don't they know my ancestors probably were the ones who invented charcoal so they could smelt, and yet these things will not.
Angels have even dispatched from Africa right now.
Man,
Africa right now. Africa right now. Africa right now.
That's right.
I love how Africa is so specific. Why does that woman, why did she say Africa right now? Africa right now. I'm like,
why does she
what's
say
going on in
anything
Africa right
says?
now?
Yes.
Look, that's what you get for being iconic. People will question the iconic things you do. I may never know the honor that is, encapsulated in that. I don't know.
So so one of the things oh goodness, I literally I know what. We needed to settle this thing about Derek. So the reason I didn't tell you I was going to be on Mythvision is because I didn't know. Derek literally just called me and he was like, last night, he was like, hey, do you want to do a live? And I was like, yeah, sure. And we were live probably about 90 minutes later. So at that point, I was like, it'll just be a nice surprise for everyone.
Agreed.
But yeah, you texted me this morning. Like, whoa, what happened?
I'm watching YouTube last night because I was on the East Coast. I'm going back to the East Coast, but I'm just here this weekend. And I was like, wait, that looks like Jay Bundy, or is that G-Man? Is that like a young G-Man, or is it? And then I click on it, and it's you, and I'm going, I would have supported him.
This is a big deal. This is a thing we should. Yeah.
Well, you told me you didn't know any more than I did until the time was there where you had to be a part of Mythvision, but that's okay. Absolutely. Because we here are Mythvision fans. So bravo.
Yes.
Good time.
Yeah, it was really fun. And we're actually going to do a course, I think, in the spring. I think we're going to try to do 2 courses, actually. And Derek has an affiliate program for that. So hopefully we'll do some more. And I'm hoping to get you on there and James and Jim.
In your course? In your course?
No, just on Mythvision. On Mythvision.
All right. Well, yeah. I need to prepare some remarks because the most interesting thing I think I have to talk about in the realm of Mythvision topics would be why I think Revelation was written before the Gospel.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Now that's... oh, man, you might have some of the scholars going in on that one.
You know what? I'll say this. There was what was that podcast? It was so popular. It was one of those debate things, and the guy stole the other guy's money. I forget what it was called, but they had Bart Lamborel on there, and they had Digital Hammurabi, and what's that Egyptologist's name? I don't recall. Maggie Bryson, listening to his thoughts on why he thought that Abraham might have met Hammurabi. And they sort of took apart the book that he read, talked about the evidence that he presented, what was good, what was bad. And I said to myself, I could appreciate that sort of scrutiny because look, if I'm right, they can prove they know about evidences I don't. If I'm wrong or half right, I think the criticism that they give or even contributions that they offer can help get me the way there. It could only be a positive thing. So, I wouldn't be ashamed to be the first person in human history to be wrong about the Bible. As you know, many believers already are.
But you think this is a thing, like that Revelation was written before John, and you've read both closely and think it holds up. And
I'll tell you, I really am someone who is off the beaten path because I think John was the first gospel written.
Okay.
I think John was the first. Like I've told you before, it seems to me that Revelation was a pre-existing document that was added to.
Right.
And Jesus and John the Baptist, allegedly cousins, if you read the scriptures, were early, either Jesus started it or John started it. Mm-hmm. And at some point in time, John looked at Jesus and said, "You must be the guy." Or Jesus said about himself. We see it today, right? Some cult leader says, "I'm the second incarnation of Christ. Here I am. Make me a sandwich." And so I think at the time, that's what happened. In the Gospels, right? When John the Baptist is born, what? It says, like, go publish this. I'm going to say far and wide. I don't think that's the precise language. Go publish this. And then in the nativity of Jesus, when the wise men show up, we saw his star in the east. Why do people think that's like a star in the sky? I don't. Because I've said this before on the program. So forgive me, everyone, for hearing this another time. No, a star, an angel, and a messenger use the same word. Now, does it make sense if messengers went out announcing the birth of John the Baptist? Like John is Elijah, right? John didn't seem to think so, if you pay attention to the Bible, but Jesus did. If they're announcing the birth of Elijah, then who must come after Elijah? The Messiah. Right? Or another prophet. So when they show up at Jesus's birth site, we heard his star in the east. We followed him. So you would follow a guy. If these wise men met somebody and said, "So wait a second, if I heard you right, you said, Elijah is coming to the world," or they're telling about this miraculous birth, and they make up their own minds that it must be Elijah. So they want to go pay tribute to the Messiah because they know it must be a child in that area. The slaughter of the innocents, we don't have that on the record anywhere else but the Bible. Right? It's just
didn't happen.
Again, it's people trying to make Jesus more interesting. To me, the only way you'll get me based on evidence that's on the table, right? Widely known. The only way you'll get me to agree there was a historical Jesus is if he was a con man it's a multi-tiered system. Jesus was a con man. Revelation was written before the Gospels. And on sort of a smaller standing, I would say John was the first gospel. Because I think
so you're willing to accept that maybe Mark was first, but then that's a mythical. You're in mythicism at that point to you.
If Mark is first, I'm a mythicist. If Luke is first, I'm a mythicist. If Matthew is first, I'm a mythicist.
Really? Can you untangle that a little bit there?
Sure. Those stories lean more heavily on, I would say, like Zechariah, Zephaniah, Malachi. They're pulling from those things. Like there's just a bunch of places where I disagree with scholars, like the two donkeys that Jesus rides into town on. I think that's a Samuel reference. I think the writer is trying to give us a twofer. Yes, there is one of the prophets that says he will come, you'll see him lowly riding on an ass, a donkey, the foal of an ass or something like that. Sure, there's that. But back in Samuel, they're looking for 2 donkeys, and they meet someone who says, "Oh yeah, those are safe. Don't worry about those."
Mm-hmm.
Also in that story, I think it's in Kings or Second Kings. And I can look that up for you. That's why I said I should prepare all this so I can give chapter and verse, and I'm not just someone talking. But there's the talk about not taking the place of high status in a room. Like, don't try to sit at the highest table, sit at a lowly table and be chosen to move forward in that. So that happens there. And then what does Jesus say? He's saying the same thing.
So you think it's okay?
Well, look, I mean, to me, the writers of the Gospels, including, especially John, none of these people were dummies. They were smart people. There's little things, right, we get wrong. Like scholars will say, and I asked, you remember when I asked Derek, why did he think that, I forget what book it was written so late? I think he said in the 90s, CE, 90s Common Era. Because to me, when Jesus says he looks down at the buildings of the temple, these things will be thrown down. That's already a prophecy. He's not coming up with that on his own. There's no need for me to believe that the writers of Luke and Mark and Matthew are wrote that after back the in time of the to something that already exactly. Okay. Because how do you write the story about Jesus and not include the destruction of the temple, the physical temple?
Right.
Even as an aside, the temple was destroyed 60 years later, 51 years later, 40 years later. That afternoon, there's all these opportunities for them to say something, but they don't.
So you think it maybe legitimately just hadn't happened yet?
I think that's the case. Again, Jesus makes the most sense as a con man if he was real.
Give me that. What's Jesus the con man? Why is that?
Jesus the con man.
We missed an opportunity for a stream title. I did the whole stream about that.
Well, he is allowing himself to be presented as the lone son of God, right? Son of the Hebrew God. He's allowing for that. He's allowing people to represent him that way.
Wow.
And if he is not truly that, he should say so. Right? Benny Hinn does not have magical effing powers that allows him to heal people.
Wow.
Neither do all these other cats. No, John of God. Nope, he doesn't. There's all these people who put themselves out there as being anointed by God. You know what? They're probably just using argan oil like me. They're no more anointed by God than I am with my argan oil in my greasy ass hair. It's just not true. They can say it's true, but it isn't. You remember, hold on. Jesus says he will send the comforter. Where's that at? Hold on.
Could you try again?
Okay, watch. Where does Jesus say he will send the comforter?
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Me neither. The Apple Watch has spoken.
That's amazing.
I'm not sure I understand.
Doesn't understand. Don't worry. Most people don't understand.
Apple Watch is a great apologist.
Yes, exactly. I don't understand. You don't? I've got some time coming up, some time off. It's time off, but I'll be working probably every second day. Okay. I clicked on Bible Hub, which I don't care for. Bible Hub is a good place to look, but I just
don't like Bible Gateway.
Yeah, Bible Gateway.
Yeah, I'm a Bible Gateway guy
because Bible Hub is Bible. You know what's funny? Bible Hub breaks it up like I would break it up if I was teaching it to somebody. When I have to write procedures, I do like Bible Hub does.
We built the Bible Gateway into the Church of the Flying Man, like gather, but we're not. We're in the cafe right now. Yeah, over in the church there's like a Book of Myron that if you interact with it, it posts up. The Bible Gateway is really fun. Yeah.
Nice. So Jesus says in John 14:16. Let me try to get this in context. Okay. John 14:15 through 17. It goes like this. If ye love me, keep my commandments, and I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever. So there's another comforter, that he may abide with you forever. Even the Spirit of truth. So that's who that comforter is, the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him. But ye know him, for he dwelleth within you and shall be in you. So Jesus is going to ask God to send a comforter to be with them, which is the Spirit of truth. The world can't receive it.
And the world can't take it away.
Wow. What did he say? What did he say, people? The world can't receive it. That's right. And the world can't take it away. Amen. Amen.
That passage is right for a Pentecostal sermon.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with largely black congregations, that's kind of how it goes. Yeah, I'll even get a come on now. And then there's always a guy who says, like, say it, preacher.
Yeah.
And then another person who says, take your time now, take your time. And it's so funny. Like, wherever I've gone in this country,
it's the same thing.
Like, it's the same. I've made the joke, like, when people ask me what I do.
It's a pattern. They've seen somebody fill that role in another group, and so
it's just handed down again and again.
It's the handed down
aesthetic. Well said. Well said. So I have joked when people have asked me, like, what do? You travel a lot. I say, well, when Apple has a presentation or Tesla, I'm the person who goes, woo! So I get everybody else to clap.
Right. Yes. So one of the proudest moments in my life was I was at a Monday Night Raw taping, and my favorite wrestler, Shawn Michaels, HBK, came out, and I was the person I jumped the HBK chant so that I could have that feeling like I started the chant. I was the first. I jumped it. I was like HBK, and then everybody started chanting along with me. Because it totally wouldn't happen if I was there. If I wasn't there, that would have never happened.
Yeah,
he would have just
been enthusiastic.
But yeah, we do like that feeling, of course.
Yeah, is something supposed to happen?
Yeah.
Well, Blackout didn't cheer, so
yeah.
Go ahead.
You're good.
Well, in the Gospel of John, or is it Revelation? I forget. But God is a spirit, and is to be worshipped in spirit and in truth. I'm pretty sure that's in John. So here you go. Here's the Spirit of truth coming. That's supposed to be. Seems like it would be God Himself, maybe. So I don't know. It's one of those things where, to me, I can dip into Revelation and pull a lot of things out that are celebrated in the letters, the epistles, and in the Gospels. Like Revelation talk. Hold on a second. Let me try to give you this sentence, because a lot of people probably have wondered this
Morning
thing.
Slug. See Raya and Carrie Ann and AR. Appreciate all you guys. It's a big block of show on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
I think Wayne and Punk, a lot of people are lurking and stuff too. I think Cameron's working with clients and stuff. But yeah, we got a lot of new viewers. It's been crazy. Like, I think we have to do another stream, I guess either later or tomorrow, to celebrate 500 subs. We just did 400. I just did a stream to celebrate 400 subs yesterday.
For what? 400 subs for you?
Yeah, because I was at 375-ish for like weeks. And then after Derek, I got over 400. But then it's already over 500 now. So it's just been kind of insane.
Well, congratulations. I'm not finding this right now. See, this is what I mean. I need to prepare.
Yeah, you're good. All right, so let's get into kind of this thing about Christian denial, right? Because I think
that's going around.
Yeah. I experienced something kind of, I think soft culting is one of the things that I accuse of Christianity of having as a superpower. The idea that there's a lot of extremism that we associate with the cult. You have to move to a compound. You're restricted in your profession, who you can marry, on and on down the list. And so we think that if your group isn't doing those things, you're comfortable denying the fact that you're in a cult. So that's a whole conversation in and of itself, the mechanisms by which believers deny the fact that they are indeed in a cult. But broadly, I just kind of wanted to touch on different mechanisms of denial and how to deal with them, because one of the things I saw was we have a lot of book burning going on, either literally or metaphorically. Literally, and then they're actually burning certain books in certain groups, but they're also having this sort of demanding books to be taken off the shelves of the library and go to the school board and complain about trans books or whatever. But what comes to mind is like when I've dealt with my family and even some of my friends from church and different people that like the believers in my life, what I feel like they're guilty of is more along the lines of denial. They're not going to burn a book or demand it be removed. They're not even going to try to tell me that I'm necessarily wrong about what I think. It's very frustrating. I often have Christians do that. They like concede things to me in a very kind of dismissive kind of way. Well, I know you always do your research and, you're usually, you're not going to say something like this unless you really, you know what you're talking about, But then when it's like, well, look, you should look into it, follow up for yourself. There's always the endless list of excuses. And so to me, you don't have to be the person burning a book to be willfully ignorant. All you have to do is say, I'm not going to look at that. I'm not going to read that. I'm too busy.
Yeah.
It's like the people like PineCreek and others in our community who deny or downplay sort of January 6th, but then they've got a million excuses why they're not watching the hearings. Oh, because the rest of us, first off, already knew this happened. We saw it happen in real time, and we're watching the hearings anyway. We're not any less busy than these other people. We just recognize when these type of historic thing happen, they tend to demand our attention, especially because most of us just want to make sure we're having a better understanding of what's going on. And so I'm trying to find new ways to challenge Christians, because I think ultimately it has to become personal. And I think this denial thing is something that really needs to get at, because somebody said it, I think it was a Theremin Trees video, but basically the idea of if you willingly ignore something or look away from something or turn the other cheek or something, or sorry, I don't know what the right phrase is, like, but like, not pay attention to something, you might not know that thing. You might be able to it gives you that plausible deniability, right? But you're no longer being honest about the situation. So yeah, you might still not understand X, Y, or Z, but you've been presented with the challenge. Somebody's tried to help you identify your area for growth, and in some sort of effort to literally hang on to your ignorance, you fail to meet the standard of what we expect from a reasonable adult. And we know people like this themselves know that that's the reasonable standard of what we expect from adults. It's what they expect from adults in any other area of their life. Go ahead.
Can I jump in? Okay.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to set it up so you're good.
Sure. Thank you. I've mentioned this before. I deal with a Facebook troll. A couple other people deal with this guy too. He can't help but to post something that is ultimately hypocritical. He doesn't understand that that's what he's doing I take that back. He absolutely understands that's what he's doing. And I think to some degree, he hopes no one notices. He hopes that there are people who aren't smart enough to realize that he's not smart about what he's posting. I think we've heard about the gambler who keeps gambling until all their money's gone, thinking, I'm going to win. I'm going to be right. I'm going to win. I'm going to be right. I think there are these people like this individual I'm referring to. I think he has seen his ideas refuted so many times. And he's literally in his face, like, here's the proof that you're wrong. Or here's the proof that you're wrong. Or here's the proof that you're wrong. That he's just throwing anything and everything out now, right? It's scorched earth. And he doesn't care. I've mentioned this to him, like, you have to care about what you post. Like, you need to start caring about this, because there are people, and I think I even use the term, more stupid than you are, who will believe what you're saying, even though it's wrong. And they won't bother to read a refutation that I present or that someone else present, and they have no more investment in it than you. And he always has something nasty to reply back, thinking he's more clever than me, which is really probably the dumbest thing I've ever seen him do, is to think he was more clever than me. Like, you just know, on his best day, he's not. On a day when I do nothing but sleep because I had COVID or something like that, he's still not more clever. So I do believe there are those people who, in their faith, as the evidence for it being the reality of their religion being true is diminishing, their faith inversely increases because it has to. It's survival. They want to go on and preserve the beauty that they find in their faith, be that the community, be that the sweet feeling they might get when they utter a prayer. I have an aunt, her solution to everything is, y'all need to pray. Now, she doesn't say that because she has no idea what to do practically, right? She needed money for something, and she called me, and I wasn't available. So she called my brother. He sent her the money, and then he told me what she needed, and I sent her more, right? So I don't know if she prayed, but I do notice she didn't just call on God if she had prayed. She called on me, she called on my brother, and she got more than she asked for. Probably from him, too. I know I sent way more than she asked for. So if she is a person of faith and she prayed to God first, look what the Lord gave her. She didn't get exactly what she wanted. For me, she got 10 times what she asked for. My brother does better than me, although he's a strange one sometimes. So she probably got exactly what she asked for from him. But but he could have gave way more than I did. He could have gave 100 times more than she asked for. So it's one of those things where that, if she did pray, is confirmation of her prayer. I've often wondered how churches divvy up the prayer requests. Do they have people in their community that can actually, if someone needs their light bill paid, who can pay it? Needs the car note paid? Who pays it? Someone just pays it. Oh, it's $316. I'll never miss it. And so they pay it. The prayer is answered, not by a God, but by the relationship that people have with God. If they contribute the car payment, they are serving. If they pay the rent, they are serving their God, right? God is using them as as his instrument. And oh, how wonderful must it be, right, for God to function that way. That person now is invested more in the community because they will start relating, if they haven't already, things that occur in their life to that, connecting that dot. And I feel like saying to people who are like that, come with me. Let me take you to Skid Row in Los Angeles, where the homelessness will shock you, where you can't walk down the street without a mask because the smell of urine and feces is so pungent, right? What's God doing for them?
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
this, is this how he represents himself? Let's go to a children's hospital. Those little kids have done nothing wrong. As the Bible would say in the New Testament, though, they must have been born with a lot of sin. There must be very sinful people, and that's why they have this problem. No, it could be environmental factors, genetics, abuse, bad luck, things of that nature. It needn't be anything harsh than that. And I've challenged believers who said, well, this is so God would be glorified. And I would say, how evil do you have to be to make someone else suffer so other people can admire you when you fix it?
And then not fix it.
Look, if somebody, some kid at St. Jude's has leukemia, right? Some 9-year-old kid that has leukemia, and St. Jude successfully treats that kid who's been prayed over by maybe hundreds of people from their home church, right? God gets the victory. Someone like me says, why would God ever put a child through that? Why? How could he be good if he does this willingly? It's one thing if God shows up to fix it and God didn't cause it, but Proverbs would have me believe that God determines all the steps that people take on this earth.
Right.
If that is true, God is a monster. Nothing less. I've said it before. If that is true, every rape, murder, theft, every crime of any kind, person feeling lonely, hopeless, all of that is the result of God playing a game with the human race. Every tiger that eats a human baby from some tribe, it's God. Every rhinoceros that stomps someone to death, that's God. People who take a swallow of water and end up drowning because it goes down the wrong pipe, God. Every squirrel taken from a nest and eaten by a cat, my neighbor's cat, God.
Right. So Uriah said he thinks these arguments are kind of weak because Christians can use Christianese to explain these things away. And this gets to kind of one of the things I've been kind of realizing lately is I think we try to make a distinction between run-of-the-mill Christians, pew fillers, as I like to call them, and sort of the apologist. And I think they're all apologists because they may not all be getting the apologetics from the internet, but they do get it from the pulpit because they're right. So that's kind of what we're here to talk about, right? Is the fact that these are such simple, obvious facts. There's no way this character is not monstrous. So I think we kind of know they can use the Christianese to explain it away. So I guess the question is, how do we prepare for that, right? Because I think we've
Sure.
Yeah, maybe that's the question.
Okay. I think to some degree you could use the Socratic method because they're going to run out of scriptures real fast. Most will, right? Because they don't really know the Bible at all. They know a few memorable things cited in church. I myself, my brain indexes things. It indexes facts. I couldn't tell you where it is precisely in the Bible, but I remember what was said, so I go to it. I use Google, right? Or
Yes.
I use the dictionary that's within whatever Bible app I have to go to something. Like I just did it for Revelation 2:19. So I think what you have to do is I can't see Uriah's comment because I don't think I have this set up properly.
Oh, it's all right. You can probably see him if you pull him up on your channel. If you pull the stream up on your channel, yeah.
You're pretending to know that I know what I'm doing.
But yeah, no, we'll get it set up for next time or something. But
okay,
yeah.
So
They
Uriah,
Uriah said that they regurgitate the apologist.
Okay, so Uriah, please forgive me, Pocket Locker. Please keep responding, okay? Because I wanna suss out what you're saying. So okay, they keep replying in Christianese. You've stated, which I can't. I thought I got a notification on my.
Also, yeah, check out James Apperson's link in the description.
So what you have to do is ask another question about the information they've given you. So they may cite another scripture. Okay. And again, use their answer as your next question. When I was learning like how to counsel people, this was something they said, and it blew my mind how effective this was at helping someone reason through their behavior or their fear or whatever it was. It was really remarkable, but it was just a Socratic method, which I didn't know it was called that at the time. So if you ask, well, why do good things happen to bad people? Well, God says my rain falls on the just and the unjust. And you can ask, what does that mean? And they could say simply that there are, for those people who need the rain, like a farmer, right? They get the rain and it's wonderful. And maybe that farmer becomes wealthy because they've had a successful crop. Right. But if that farmer is a bad person, that's an opportunity for them to gouge with prices and make more money and just abuse the general public. The streets would be cleaned as a result of the rain, if it was paved. There's all sorts of things they could make up. And then you just come on in there. Well, that's and you in a way, you call it what it is, but that's a reference to rain. It's a metaphor for sure. I get it. But how is that practical in my daily life? How can I use that to my advantage or to cope with life as it is? And they'll probably just keep giving you scriptures. Direct the conversation towards the answer you want to get them to admit to. Yeah. Which is typically... Go ahead, Pocket Locker.
And I was just going to say that also said that they have a whole thing about suffering, and they have a deceptive explanations of this, right? And that's kind of what you're getting at, where they can retort to metaphor when helpful.
Let's go directly there. Yeah. Let's go directly there. Uriah, the example I gave of the children in the children's hospital, other people suffering around the world, right? I've seen the meme. That I made the meme actually, where there's a famous portrait of a child in Ethiopia that's huddled over, and this kid is starving to death. And nearby, there's a buzzard just a few feet away from this child. And I put, God answers prayers. Sometimes he says no. So this child needs food, right? This child, if the photographer who ended up committing suicide, this is a Pulitzer Prize winning photo. If the photographer
and they committed suicide,
yes, out of guilt
for sitting there taking it and
just the observer
not being able to do anything,
could have stepped in, could have adopted this child, right?
Yeah,
and he could have had a job at Kmart and could have fed this child for life and raised that child, and that child could be a productive member of whatever society.
Right.
Could have sent that child back home after it became an adult. If it's too rough there, you come back here.
Right.
Right. Could have saved the life of this child and others. But that wasn't his duty. Yeah. He felt, well, my picture will bring awareness to this problem. He's right. If that was his thinking, it worked. It brought a hell of a lot of awareness. But Uriah, for the people of faith, you then can pose to them, what about this? Why did God say no to this child or the people praying for this child? What did God need with this soul? Why couldn't that child grow up and be happy in abundance? Why did God say no to that child? And I'm sure you might get back, well, Jesus said, love the poor, you will always have them. But why is that? Why will we always have poor? Christianity calls people to give everything they have, give up everything they have. But we don't see Christians doing that. And then you could ask, would you do that? Would you give up everything you had? Give it to the poor, sell it and give the money to the poor and go follow Jesus? there are simple questions like that, Uriah, where
and wouldn't even be a good thing.
I'm borrowing a response, a term that I heard someone use last month. Oh, it was this month. An institutional response. One of the most powerful terms I've ever heard, because it is utterly lacking in compassion as I hear an institutional response. So I think a lot of times, Uriah, what you will get and what I will get and Pocket Locker and our other viewers will get is an institutional response from Christians about these difficult
100%.
questions that we ask. Well, this is the party line. This is what we've learned to say. Doesn't mean that it's right? It doesn't mean it's the best course of action, but it's what they know.
Absolutely.
It's their coping mechanism. I believe it's their coping mechanism in the face of something that's very difficult for them to tackle. They need the answer they give you to be sufficient to maybe even make you go away. It's unlikely unsatisfactory answers will convert you. So I think that's where you want to drive the conversation to, the questions that are hard for them to answer rather than allowing them to keep everything hard for you to answer.
I agree. I think that's a really effective thing. Something I've been really reflecting on in my family even is that a lot of times I think we have an opportunity to have conversations with people of faith in our life, and I think we should. And I think we're going to see disappointment, right? Because, and this was sort of a difficult thing, even talking to my mom, like realizing I'm so versed in counter apologetics, and she doesn't even realize when she's doing apologetics. So you're going to have these conversations, and your friend is going to give you all sorts of bad arguments. But I really think that shows us that for a lot of them, this is genuinely the first time they've ever talked about their faith. And this is hard for me to admit this about people in my own life, but I have people in my life that have been Christians for 60, 70, 80 years.
Or they thought they were.
Right? And then it's like you finally...
I don't say that to be mean. I say that to be honest. They thought they were.
Yeah, they've never really thought about these critical issues. And literally you have to remember, they might be all about Jesus, but and it seems to us they must be deep in that Bible. They must be all about the life. They must be always thinking about God and these bigger questions. And then you're going to realize, you essentially are trying to have a PhD level conversation with somebody who has a primary school understanding of these issues. It's literally, you're going to be coming from the perspective of, I watch Mythvision podcasts with Dr. Bart Ehrman and Kip Davis and Josh Bowen and on and on and on, the whole gang. And then they're going to be on the Sunday school tip.
Yeah.
That's going to be the reality of the situation. Right. But I still think it's an amazing opportunity. If we could look past that, it's going to be uncomfortable. Know that that's going to come out, and you don't know what's going to come out. That's why it's information finding. You don't know what particular hook they're on, what particular argument they might fall back to when challenged. You need to know that, because that's how you figure out where they're at. But yeah, you just like I was in my family. Like, I don't think they ever talked about it. Right, because I think when my mom grew up, it was probably, from what I understand, it's like church, everything, blah, 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 blah. There's no way she was even going to speak up about her thoughts, challenges, doubts, whatever. And then I think for her, when she raised me, it was just do it different. Like, she just thought, raise me in like a better Christian household that sort of corrects for the things she didn't like about the way she was raised. Right, but then you just repeat the same pattern. And so I don't think anybody ever, I highly doubt they ever sat across a damn dinner table and talked about the authenticity of the Gospels or any of these things. Like, there's never, right? You know what I'm saying? So the life is faith, 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 but everybody's amen and hallelujahing, and they've never probably actually sat down and thought oh, well, what do I believe? How would I explain my beliefs to somebody? Really interesting.
Well, you have Matt Dillahunty famously would quote 1 Peter 3:15, which is a verse about being able to tell other people about your faith. So if you know that and you ask and they don't have an answer, like Trump, when he was asked that, he clearly didn't have an answer. Look, I recognize that he was bullshitting. But there are people who understood when he said, like, it's a private matter. Faith is very personal and private. He's still right. But he's failing to do the Christian thing, which is not to conceal your reasons. He doesn't have reasons, but it's to truly share with the other people. Here's why I believe that. Even though you may be persecuted for it.
Yeah.
You just say it. Just come out with it. So, it's one of those things where I'm glad you understand it may be difficult for your mom and other people to process these thoughts.
Yeah.
I think we all need to realize it may be difficult. Again, I'm repeating myself, but I'll have to say it. If they start to agree with us, they give up heaven. They give up a God that can do anything. They give up Jesus, who gave his own life, right? A divine being gave his own life for their sin.
Just for me.
My nephew would sing, Jesus is on the mainland. And I'm sitting there like, all right, nephew. Only he was like 5, so it didn't sound like that. But he would be singing that song, and I would be sitting there listening, thinking, I don't think that's necessarily the case, but whatever. I don't know. I'm someone whose family has a prayer line, so I'm from a deeply religious stock, if you will. So I think the best we can do, and you too, Uriah, is have compassion. And maybe that's something you want to say when you have these discussions.
All right, so hang on. Here's a thing from Uriah. He said, both my parents were coming off bad breakups and they fled into the church and met. My mother had a soulmate before my father who up and left her. And my father had a girlfriend who aborted their kid without telling him.
Wow.
It devastated him when he found out. They picked the path that was the opposite of the things that just hurt them. Yeah, so quickly, I wouldn't even touch on that. Like, it's hard for me dealing with my family because, my grandmother's so important to our family, and she didn't know her father, right? And so I always feel like that, there's a lot of people with that kind of story, and I just kind of remember that too, whereas, like, imagine not knowing a father, and then you're introduced to the ultimate father again with, sacrifice for
that's
you.
That's the title, yeah.
And all of that. Mm-hmm. He said, I want to talk to my parents, but I don't want to hurt them. They're old. Yeah. I think that's what a lot of us deal with. And I want to distinguish two things here. I think there's a social threat and a natural threat. The natural threat is they're not going to be around forever. To me, I flip that into motivation to actually have the conversation. Because number one, since our time is limited, I want them to get to know, I want to relate to them as who I really am. And I feel like I would love to see whatever I can see. If I can see some more acceptance, that would be amazing. If I could see it doesn't have to be, they realize they're like, oh yeah, my faith is stupid, I'm no longer a Christian. That'd be great. But, even just more acceptance, even just more understanding, a different type of conversation. I would love something as simple as to be able to talk about my work, right? To me, it could be something that practical. It could be, I'm an evolutionary biologist. I'd like to be able to discuss my research without worrying that y'all are going to trip. And at the same time, I feel like I'm running out of time for them to grow. That's sort of the natural threat. The social threat is when people kind of hit you with the well, you're going to need them and they're not going to be around forever, almost in a way that discourages you from coming forward. That's hard to deal with, and it took me a long time to recognize that as a threat. But around here, I'm trying to be the bridge for a lot of people in the community that encourages them or helps them talk to their family and friends about their atheism. I try to do it myself so that I'm not a hypocrite in that regard. But you'll certainly find a lot of other content creators out there that will tell you, not to or don't, or you're not the right person to do it and all this other stuff. I certainly understand that perspective. So I don't judge anybody. So I just want people to know I'm always encouraging people to do it, but I don't want people to ever think that means I don't understand why a lot of people don't.
Well, I think for you and Uriah and anyone else who's facing this with aging parents, like my mom is aging. I have a neighbor across the street. She's a deist. She's 86 or 87 years old. She and I, we enjoy talking about religion. My mom, though, because her perspective is comfortable for her. A woman who's been in a wheelchair 20 plus years, lives alone, used to be more active, took care of everybody else. Now she's having wounds that won't close, things like that. Seeing a doctor every other week, having to be taken there, not by one of her children, but by some van that comes and shows up. We pay for it, but we just don't. I have one brother that lives in that community that can help her, and he's like the hardest working person on the planet. So he does when he has time, but when he doesn't, the van has to come and get her. God and the Hallmark Channel are her rocks.
Right.
If you took away the Hallmark Channel, she'd probably be an atheist because she'd have to think about it more.
Right.
But I would say for your aging parents, Jay, and your aging parents, Uriah, the best things to talk about just aren't religion. There's so much history that you have with those loved ones that has nothing to do with religion. So it may be your worst move to spend a lot of time discussing religion. Now, as far as you being a non-believer, if you are, Uriah, as far as you being a non-believer, all they need to have, I guess, from me on the outside looking in, right, at all of you, is the perspective that you are not a religious person. You still love them. You still care. They mean a lot to you. And you can make completely new memories that have, nothing to do with a church or a Christ or a God or a hell. Because really, the best things aren't religion.
Right. But that's the part that takes work, because for some people, that's just a path they have. For others, that's a path that has to be created. Like I was in a situation where that path has to be created because it was such a dominant framework. It's, you can smell the Jesus in the air when you walk in the door.
Smell it. Is that Jesus?
So and that's what they don't see, right? That there's a lot of people in the family who have just stayed away or kept their engagement very, very limited. Now that hurts them, but at some point, again, you're running out of time to be honest with yourself. And then the other thing is, it just depends. Like in my family, I don't give them any of those passes. Why? Because like my grandfather's still preaching. So again, he's not too old to sit up on Saturday night for a couple hours, pouring through the scriptures, preparing his sermon. So he's perfectly capable of sound mind. And also, he's just a disappointing person in some regards. Everybody has their character flaws. And so I'm not a person who feels the need to hold my family in some sort of weird high regard. Like at some point, they're just, there's been a lot of disappointment there, right? So I would love to be in a relationship that moves past that, but it's just going to take some work. Some people, it might not, right? You just got to let it go. But for other people, you might have to work because they're not used to relating to the world or anybody in it without that. And I just can't take that. Like, I'm totally Jesus intolerant at this point because it's too much, right? I shouldn't have to look at that. That's just me. Like, I'm a person who I don't want to, a lot of people know how I feel, but I'm the type of person I don't want to see that type of stuff when I come home. I don't want to be asked to pray. I don't want people praying around me, because I don't think it's okay for them to just keep getting this pass. Like, I think about it if I was LGBT or something like that, and you could come from a family that doesn't accept that, like mine was coming up, and to just sit around and try to worship a God that is the problem with the way our loved one is treated in their face, and then ask them to turn the other look. I'm not comfortable doing that or asking other people to do that anymore, because that's what I feel like I'm asking a person to do. Just set yourself aside so that these other people in your family can be comfortable. And I just think at some point the burden has to shift. At some point the burden has they've got to because if we never, like, when do they get the chance? Like, you know what I'm saying? At some point somebody's got to give them the opportunity to grow too.
I think to some degree, this is going to sound weird, and if you ever make shorts of our videos, make this one. We have a responsibility, I think, as former non-believers. As former believers,
yeah.
We have a responsibility to instruct and correct believers. The message of Jesus, not Old Testament Jesus, not Jesus in the epistles, not Jesus in Revelation, but the Jesus of the Gospels. He spoke about the power of loving people as they are, accepting them as they are, even when they need something from you, even when they're asking you for your very life, you give it. So for the whatever group, specifically, I'll say LGBTQ, I hope I said that right. But for groups of that nature and that group, if you are a non-believer and you want to believe that man should not lie with man as he does with woman, or that couples that do should be stoned to death, that sort of thing, if that is your method of thinking, please understand it conflicts with the part where the guy with the long hair allegedly was telling everybody they got to love each other.
Right.
You have to love those people that you don't readily accept. You have to love them. I think there's great wisdom in that, because all of us, no matter where you come from, what your background is, what you believe or what you don't believe, everybody on this planet needs love. That's enhanced when we have what? Friends and people who understand us. That's enhanced when we have peers and friends and strangers who respect us. But to have an attitude that's one of hatred, right? Hatred that the other person didn't even earn,
right,
by wronging you or wronging someone you know, right?
Right.
Where it doesn't even make the news anymore, right? They're just living their life.
So I have felt like,
go ahead.
Just quickly, that if any other book had that message in it, we'd be done with it. It would be a deal breaker. It would be totally unacceptable to associate with a novel that had that said that, unless you're teaching this as some sort of historical exercise. Yet somehow the Bible can't clear the hurdle of being true. And that's why I can't deal with the identity anymore. I think, I guess I think part of it is I feel for Christians. I really do empathize and sympathize with where they're coming from. But because of that, I've got to call them out on it. Because I know so few people are willing to, that I just, again, it's like me and Uncle Bobby say, if if or to put it to Wayne's point, he said he takes the Dillahunt approach where he's not trying to challenge him directly, but he'll call out when the pastor's lying to them. I called out when the pastor's lying to them, and I got the pushback. So when I
somebody knows, I'll say this: whoever was listening, there are people who were listening that know you're right.
What do you mean?
When you call out the pastor for lying, there are people who know you're right.
Oh,
that will overhear you. They will know you're right. And they will sit there and probably say nothing.
Right.
Ever. But what you're doing is you're putting a wedge where there was already a split.
Yeah.
You're putting a wedge in there. And every time they see that person lie, that wedge is driven deeper and deeper until the complete split occurs.
Yeah.
I'll give you a life example. I tend to be pretty good at these. So I'll give you two. Right now in my home, there's a bee. And I don't know where the bee is now. I suspect it's in this window to my right because I heard buzzing a little bit ago. It's loud when this bee flies. Last night it landed on my television when I was watching television. Before we started the podcast, it was on the curtain. Now, I would love to capture the bee because the bee is in my world. I don't want to smash it. I don't want to kill it. I don't want to crush it. I would love to capture the bee and take it outside and let it go. Right? That's where it can thrive. It can't thrive in here. It can sit trying to get out the window because the windows are clean and it looks like it can just fly away. But for something is stopping it, it can't do that, right? That's the person who realizes that their faith is in vain. They're in a place, the church, whatever the family unit that they have, because they are stuck in an environment that is truly not their own. They can't thrive. And it seems like they should be able to just go right off, but there's something in the way and they can see right through it, but it's still in the way. This bee may not understand what glass is. It may not understand what I am. So, okay, in my environment, it's surrounded by things that are foreign to it that it will not understand.
Right.
But what it does understand is how things used to be when it felt free. And there are those people who would have felt free in their faith, right?
Right.
But after they start to find out some more facts, that dries up. And they don't have it anymore. Now, how do you find freedom outside the window, right? What's beyond the glass? You know what's beyond there, but you don't know how to get to it anymore. And this bee will likely keep trying. And the curtains are mostly shut. There's a small opening in the curtains. And this bee may eventually fly out of there, but it is unlikely that the bee will just land on my back quietly as I walk out the door to go get some more firewood and then fly off. It's unlikely. For people watching and listening, you don't have that problem that the bee does. You can break the glass and walk right on through or fly. This is like the flying man thing. So, yeah. Fly.
Yeah.
Secondly, I was speaking with my fiance this morning about my car. I have a 2008 Prius. It's the best car I've ever owned. It's not the fanciest. It's not the coolest. It's simply the best. I paid $4,000 for it. I put over 130,000 miles on the car in 6 years. I go away for long periods of time to work. When I do that, the car gets worse. Right? So I have someone that take the car around the block every 2 weeks when I'm out of town. That's not enough for the car. It's just sitting. The catalytic converter went bad. Just sitting. The battery pack, that's like the expensive one, that's $2,000 if you get a reconditioned one, it went bad. There's door locks that don't want to work every time. There are pieces that are broken. It has body damage, and I got it that way. And then somebody who wasn't very polite backed into it and drove off. So it has additional body damage. It gets 39 and a half miles per gallon roughly. But I used to drive it when it would get 53. So its capacity, yeah. Oh, I mean, look, it's broken and it still gets that. So that's a testament to the engineers. And I have to drive up and down a mountain. Down the mountain makes it easy. Up the mountain for a 3-cylinder with no battery help, that's a bit of a challenge.
3-cylinder?
That's what my Prius is. Yeah, 3-cylinder. Yeah.
I know they made those.
It's powered by bees. There's a beehive connected. Maybe that's why that bee got in here and followed me out of my car. But, you know, the simple fact is that I've had this for a long time, and it's been very reliable to me. I don't get out of it what I used to. See the metaphor with religion?
Right.
I had it for a long time, and the day came where I didn't get out of it what I used to. I still got something out of it. It's not that it isn't useful anymore, but I'm approaching the point where I'm going to start replacing things, and those are going to add up to probably around $5,000 for a car that cost me $4,000. So wow. Do I take that same money and replace it comparatively to religion? I can invest my time and my resources in something else that is newer and probably can serve me better.
Absolutely.
And do away with the old one altogether. I can junk it, right? Or I can give the car, which I plan to do, to my neighbor's son. He's a great guy with a lot of bad luck. It's still a good car. It does better than his Toyota Camry on mileage, and he has a 60-plus mile trip a day, I think. So, okay, he's using 2 gallons of gas, basically, as opposed to 5 or 6. Okay, so it's a good deal. So the faith that you give up, someone could readily use to believe in whatever you believed in, the way you believed in it, and enjoy it, even though, and literally the way you left it, that's still a plus for them. It's still a win for them. You know, the person that drank too much but found Jesus, if you will, and drinks less now is better off in some respects than he was before he found Jesus. He's trying to quit now. So instead of a whole bottle of, you know, gin or whiskey a day, he's down to just a cup or half a glass.
Right.
Can't let it all go.
Finally learning moderation.
Learning moderation. So for me, do I get the new car, if you will? Do I buy another used car? And then it comes to, I work in finance, so it's how I value things, which I was just talking with my doctor about this on Friday. My Prius, though it's a 2008, it's a $30,000 car. And because she was considering getting another car. So I said, why? Why do you want one? And she talked about similar reasons. She's starting to replace things, and she's got a 2014, and she makes quite a bit of money. And so she thought, oh, I like the new ones too, so maybe I'll get a new one, which looked like her old one pretty much. And I said, well, your old SUV is a $45,000 car. If you bought the same thing and it cost the same price, right? The new model.
Right.
She says, I don't understand you. I said, right now, the SUV you have is doing the job of the SUV you would replace it with. It's doing it every bit as good, but it's doing it. Like my Prius. I would get a new Camry if I were to buy a new car, the Camry Hybrid. This does everything that does, only the MPG is slightly worse.
I'm sorry.
Okay, my watch is sorry. It doesn't do it in style. The new one does. My Prius smells like burgers and farts. The new one will, but it won't the day I get it. And so I have to decide, is it worth giving up the old for the new? Because there's a new cost for the new. I'm going to get $0 for my old Prius because I'm giving it away.
Right.
So I'm out with taxes, title, and license in the state of California. $30,000. I think I get a $2,500 rebate. Great. But I still got to pay the $30,000, before I get the rebate. So that's something to look at. There's a cost. When we walk away from whatever faith tradition, there's a cost to it.
Yeah.
Luckily, we might be able to. The cost isn't financial, right? If you were tithe, you now have that money to do with as you please. But the cost is the people that you may have to give up. You played in the band Pocket Locker. You still do.
Yeah.
There are those people who, they're people I still talk to that I used to go to church with because I love them.
Sure.
And I think the world of them. Well, church wasn't what bound us together. It is merely what brought us together. Right. And I think Uriah and the rest of everyone in Pocket Locker have to look at it that way. It was a nice way to meet some new people who are really wonderful, or people we've known a long time. You don't have to give those people up. You don't. So you could keep the cost extremely low. There will be those people, especially if you are a Jehovah's Witness, who will not associate with you anymore because they don't want to fall away, or there's community pressure not to. So, yeah, that could be a cost.
I always just say it's not safe. I was it kind of helped me to just acknowledge that, that there's going to be those consequences. And it's like a lot of parts of adulting, you just deal with it. I almost think a lot of times people spend too much effort trying to, because apologists are going to apologize at the end of the day. So,
at the end of the day.
I don't think there's a magic spell you can cast that's going to make it easy. I think
there is. I disagree entirely.
What would that be?
You are not required to care. So just don't care.
Oh yeah, yes.
That is magic to go from a person who does care to a person who doesn't. The easiest way to get rid of someone who is proselytizing to you is to say something, that's a fascinating story, even if it's true. You say something like that to them, and they will feel that you are not a good person to talk to about what they're trying to sell you, even if it's true. Or like, look, that's nothing I want to discuss with you.
Right. I think.
Or hold on, one thing I just thought of. You can ask them. If they say, hi, I'd love to share the story of Jesus Christ with you, you can ask them immediately, tell me something you don't want to talk about. And then when they give you that topic,
you recommend, you can
simply say,
before. Yes.
Now you know how I feel. Have a good day.
That's funny. I think the thing that I think is interesting to ponder is if you almost might need to, because that's the thing I can't get around with some people. I have these conversations with Christians. At the end of the day, I think they don't care, right? There's part of them that's aware of so many of the problems in their faith, and they don't care. Like they're ignoring it. Like if you haven't noticed the radicalization of the right and their explicit overtures towards Christian nationalism, you just don't care. If you haven't noticed that your faith is the source, like that, if you haven't noticed that the church is on the wrong side of every issue, when I see racist YouTubers, I'm like, Christian. It's so easy. I see an anti-vaxxer, Christian, easy. Am I wrong? I'm not saying there never comes a time I'm wrong. I'm just saying if you're in the nature making predictions, this is the prediction to make, right? And to just not notice that at some point they don't care, and so you might have to go to a similar level of apathy to represent your side just as fervently. Go ahead.
I think passion is the way to go. When you can, it's like, I guess you go see a band, not like a famous band where it's Van Halen or Aerosmith or something, just a band. You go there and they're just, the guitarist is amazing, right? And then they have a guest guitarist come in the next time you should go see that band, because whatever, the guy's got the flu or something like that. You can't make it. So they have a guest guitarist, and this guy makes the other guy seem like an amateur. They're like, holy crap, where did this dude come from? They're on another level. Right. On another level. Well, you thought what you heard was really great, but now it's like it's elevated. So I think I guess this is the path I took. I chose to know more than I ever did, rather than simply throw my Bible on the ground and walk away, stomp on it and walk away. And it's fun to see people kind of have those lights turn on in their head. So for me, apathy wasn't the way. Mm-hmm. It was, no, because your Bible conflicts so much with its own self, let me tell you what it says elsewhere, and then you have to deal with that. I don't. I've made up my mind about it. Show me the new evidence, and I'm happy to hear it because I'll learn something, and I'm not scared to learn something. I've mentioned on Hot Program before, if there was a God, that beautiful question, if there was a God, and this God showed himself, and it was the God of the Bible, would I worship him? No. Below my standards. I don't have to do it. What if he threatened you? He already has. Right? I'm supposed to go to hell. I don't believe in Jesus.
All of it is a threat. The whole, I don't know. Why did it take me so long to realize this? But it's all a threat. And I don't know. I think this is like my social justice cause. I think. Okay. I really do feel like, in a sense, heathens. You bunch of heathens. It's like there's no place for us in their happy little kingdom. Not the one in the sky, and not the one they're trying to create here on earth. And I feel like I need people to wake up, because we need people on our side. And I want to fight this damn thing. I got beat over the head with God and religion. It was bad. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of about it. Like I always tell people, I try to remind people, I'm a counter apologist. So my empathy and sympathy for the other side only goes so far, because at the end of the day, like my mom asked me, she was like, do you just want everyone to stop believing? It's like, yes. It's not what I demand. It's absolutely what I would like to see happen. It's just where I'm at.
There was a UFC fight on at a place where I had dinner last week. And there was this, maybe it wasn't UFC. It was one of these things where people beat the crap out of each other. And there's tons of people watching. There was this one fighter, she knocked somebody out. And then she jumped down on the mat. The referee is counting on the other side of her. This person is in the middle. And she's there kneeling in front of this person. Not in any vicious way, but in a way like she truly cared that this person was okay. The crowd is cheering. This was an amazing knockout. She was not, from what I could tell, focused on that crowd. She was concerned that she'd done permanent physical harm to someone, and that's not what she wanted. Winning, wow. Yes. Wow. Killing someone, no. Ruining their life, no. And I thought, I resonate with her. When I have these counter-apologetics conversations with people, I know there's an audience that's cheering, right? They might be cheering for the other person. They might be cheering for me. But I still got to care about that person that's in front of me.
Yeah, I remember growing up, my stepdad knocked the guy out in a karate tournament. He was like a 5th degree black belt or something. And the guy had a blood clot in the front of his brain and the back of his brain. And I remember him going to we had to go visit the guy in the hospital. Just looking back on it, I think it spoke a lot to his character. But it's funny because I remember my mom really trying to get my stepdad on the Christian tip, but I don't really think he ever was, but I just think he was, a good person.
Yeah, human beings can have good character without a religious reason.
Yeah.
And that's the best reason to have it, just because that's who you are. You have your own moral code and way that you want to conduct yourself and the way that you prefer others see you. But what's more important than all that is how you see yourself. Like what you do, how you truly can see yourself through doing what? Your good deeds, through being what? Who you are. You don't have to force anything. Just be you.
Yeah, I was also reminded of a story. So you talked about the photographer who had the guilt over the girl. So there was a sociologist named Kevin Bales. He wrote a book. What's the book called? Disposable People. You guys can check that out. I'm sure it's a hot seller on Amazon. And it's about modern day slavery. There's more slaves in today's world than at any point in human history. We just don't talk about it because we associate slavery with a particular type. So he tells the story of a girl that he interviews, and he, kind of gets her out of the situation so he can, tell her story, right? But he always breaks down, when he's doing his presentations, when he talks about having to basically like send her back, right? Because there's very strict conditions under which he's allowed to do his work, like the photographer. So he can't, remove this person from this situation, even though he's aware of just how horrible her situation is and exactly what she's going back to. And it always chokes me up when I hear him tell the story. But I think there's some of that in our own relationships with people, to where when you're talking to somebody, having conversations with them, and we know they're doing this hard thing, after that conversation, we have to be okay with the fact that they're going to still, at least right now, probably go back to that thing. They're not going to get it the first pass, and you're going to have to let them go back and keep going. Go ahead.
Well, I think literally I know Christians literally say they're slaves to Christ, or they can say that based on the Bible, right? Going back to Uriah's point, they can pull out a scripture that validates their argument. So yeah, they'll go right back to being a slave for Christ because that's what they want to be. Serving is how they get in. Let me go to this one scripture from Revelation. 2:9. Is it 19?
Derek, what's up? This is
19. Hey, Derek.
Derek, this is my one black friend. He's a requested guest here. He's got some interesting theories to potentially
Derek
share
already
on
knows.
Mythvision.
I told him that before, like when he was a guest on the show that comes up after a hot program, because I think we overran hot program time and kept talking. So Revelation chapter 2, I'll read you 18 and 19. To the angel of the church in Thyatira write, these are the words of the Son of God, whose eyes are like blazing fire and whose feet are like burnished bronze. This is the important part. I know your deeds, your love, and your faith, your servants and perseverance, and that you are doing more now than you did at the first. I think I'm looking at a translation that I didn't want to have, but it talks about in one of the translations, I think it's the King James, how the last is more important than the first. Right?
Yes.
The works, not just your faith. They're more important than sorry, I just got a message. They're more important than just what you say you believe.
This is what Rebecca has kind of said, although she tries to say that that's not a gospel of works because you still need Jesus or whatever.
Well, that's who's speaking in this quote.
But
Jesus
did you know that she's back? That she's returned?
Is she?
Yes, back and worse than ever.
Worse than ever?
Yeah, her first stream back was if you're anxious about the non-believers in your life dying, don't worry, you can still pray them on through and God can include them. I know this teaching is forbidden in most denominations. And then it just the self-contradictions, talking out of both sides of her mouth, and just still not, to me, I hate to say this, but like, she has an atheist son. And
okay.
She just needs to get a clue that this is not it's not a good deal for him. Like, this is it's got to be frustrating.
Well, her atheist son is probably a very strong person.
I'm sure he's fine.
And is dealing with, like, hopefully. That's just what my mom does. Like, if she was let's say his mom was a championship bowler. Right, and he thought bowling was so lame. My mom's always like, everything's a bowling reference.
Right, yeah.
You know, all this stuff, and I just can't stand it. But my mom loves it. It does no harm for her to love bowling. And he might go sit when she's in a tournament and cheer her on while he's sitting there sipping a beer or something like that. Yeah, my mom sure knows how to be a holy roller. They're bowling and all her bowling jokes. I'm sure he takes that all in stride if that was the case, right?
Yeah.
So with her faith, he's strong enough to say, it's not what I believe, but I bet he loves his mother deeply and can smile at her and think, wow, she believes a dude walked on water.
But then it's like the topics, you know, she throws atheist under the bus. I mean, all the way under the bus. So it's weird. And I'm sure they navigate. I'm sure they have to, and they've figured it out. Mm-hmm. But it does kind of. But you know, it's no different than what a lot of us are dealing with. She just has a YouTube channel, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of our family members are Rebecca's. In their own way, right? And so she has a YouTube channel. She's back.
I'm lucky in my family. I don't get challenged because they all know better.
Yeah, that's how kind of my family is too. But it's kind of irritating, and they just avoid it altogether.
Yeah, don't challenge him on this stuff. He knows it better than you ever will. He's going to talk you out of it because he'll make you talk yourself out of it. So just don't bring it up. There's a hedge there. And that's, in my family, that's very much respected. And probably, I think that's the best anyone can hope for, other than it's just not important. You've already talked about it and you move on. It's not something you avoid talking about. It's something you don't need to discuss. Right. That's probably the sweetest spot to be in.
I think so, yeah. It's kind of the afterwards. But you know, like I said, you got to create that space, and then I think that's exactly probably where most of us would be happy to land, right? Where it's a respected difference, whatever you need to feel comfortable has been accommodated for, and it's an issue that doesn't necessarily need to be dealt with going forward. In some sense, it reminds me of some of the but it just depends. There has to sometimes be a reckoning first. That's where I'm at with, like, you know, people who are sitting on some nonsense about certain social issues. I'm willing to show them grace, but first I need to see some contrition.
But that's for you.
Yeah, that's for me. That's just for me.
That's for
just,
you.
But that's just on certain things I actually find to be problematic and harmful. But yeah.
I think what we all need to make peace with, believers and non-believers, is that everybody isn't going to see it our way. Even after we speak to them, no matter how much time you grant to them, and no matter how much you laugh and smile together, you will have your differences. And the relationship, the friendship, doesn't need to be about those differences. It can be about what you have in common. And you can celebrate that. And one day you might need those differences to be there. So you can ask that person, hey, how would you deal with this and this and this? My aunt, who's extremely religious, no matter what the issue, she would say, y'all need to pray about it. As I mentioned before, that is her way of dealing with every problem.
Yeah.
Unless the problem is small. If I called her up and I'd say, hey, can I Apple Pay you $200 to give to my mom? Sure. Do you want me to take her to the bank? If she wants to go to the bank, yeah, that'd be great. All right. No prayer necessary. There's no leaving it up to Jesus. No on her need to God. It needs to God. No prayer line, no family prayer line, making sure that this gets put into the rotation. It's simply, well, I just have to put forth the effort.
Yeah, me, if you say that to me, I'm just not, you're just off my call list.
The prayer line?
Yeah, yeah, that's where I'm getting, because again, I'm not here to, I'm honestly, I don't know if it's the bipolar or what, but I'm not here to be friends with everybody. I ain't here to be cool with everybody. And even in my own family, I'm not here to be close to everybody. If you don't get me, cool. But I'm probably going to lose interest in you. It's just like people, it's like when you outgrow an ex or, a particular group or something like that. We had our period. I'm thankful to what you contribute to my life, but I want people who are going to help me going forward, and I'm not. And again, like that's why I give people the opportunity, because I need to see who they are. If you're this person who grows, or you're trying to work with it, or you'll get with it, you'll figure it out, then we're good to go. Like, I don't think my dad's ever had an issue with it, or I think my mom, for the most part, is fine. There are those conversations. But if you're really the type of person who, at the end of the day, that I'm just, I think like my grandparents, like that's the point we're at. Like they have to fundamentally relate to me differently, because the truth is I just can't relate to them right now. And it's been the kind of thing where I'm not interested in talking to them that much. That's not me trying to be mean and be like, I hate them, I think they're bad people, I don't love them. It's just being honest about the fact that the motivation isn't there. I don't want to talk to people like that, right? It's a repulsive. You're not attractive to me. I think that's what Christians don't understand. I think it's boring. I think it's uninteresting. I think it's hateful, and I think their ignorance is willful. Like they're just, we're not on the same page about this type of stuff.
If I were to take your class, Pocket Locker, on the first day, I'm not on your level.
Sure.
After the first year, I'm still not on your level.
Right.
After maybe 12 or 14 years, I could be.
Right.
Right? There's even no guarantee of that. I could be. I might even eclipse you if I put in that kind of time.
Sure.
And I'm getting a hold of the best materials on the subject of, genetics and how these simulation programs work and things like that. I might write the definitive work on it someday, conceivably. But when I enter into that world, I am not on your level.
Sure.
It's the best thing I can do to help me actually learn what you have to teach me is realize that I'm a student and you are the teacher. You might learn something from me. You might, but that's not why I've come there.
Right, right.
I've come because you have the mind power.
Sure.
You have the understanding, and I'm looking to gain that understanding.
Yeah.
The best thing I can do is ask effective questions and keep my mouth shut when I'm not asking those questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that you got to know where people are at. Yeah. I think for me, it's just I just need to know that. Like if I see a person, they're trying, they're pretty much good to go. But I've just realized not everybody grows, and you're not obliged to be interested in everybody. You don't have to like it's okay. You can outgrow people. You can not be interested in certain relationships. Like, hey, if I call somebody and I don't really feel what they have to say when I talk to them, I don't have to keep calling them. This stuff is torture to me. I don't think, like I said, it could be the way my brain works particularly different maybe than other people, but these type of identity type issues, they cut me really deeply. So they really affect me. And it's just at some point I just have to stop. Like I'm not a person who's gonna keep subjecting myself to uncomfortable experiences.
I don't recommend that you do.
Yeah. At some point I'm just gonna blame myself. It's like, you're the reason you keep experiencing this. Right?
Well, look, you've said it yourself. The better decision is to just enjoy what you do in life. And you're going to get, 80, maybe 100 years on this planet?
Yeah, bet.
Well, technically, you're going to get all the years on this planet until it blows up. Then you're going to, your body, your elements that once made up you are going to get scattered. But anyway, until that happens, you're going to be here. But at the same time, your consciousness is going to be good for about 100 years, with what science knows now. So you eat the vitamins, your spinach, and you don't overdo this or that bad habit. That's about all you're going to get. And you should enjoy as much of it as possible. Don't work too little or too hard.
Sure.
Try to show up on time and really get the most out of everything you do. And if you can bring people that you're going to love or enjoy along with you, do it. Do that, because everything is more fun pretty much when it's shared. Most things are more fun when they're shared. Yes.
Wayne, sorry for your loss. And, I think that speaks to kind of what we're talking about here, that, if you feel like your family would ban you from visitation if they knew you were an atheist, I mean, I'll put it to you on both sides. It's a really good reason to not tell your family members you're an atheist. But it's also a really good reason to tell them. Because what I think is, just to be honest, I think Uncle Bobby was right about this is who we are. When I look at my family and I hear their challenge, their response to challenges to their faith, they want to look the other way. They don't want to read this. They just want to be left alone. They don't, this is who they are. And it's not pretty, but it's who they are. And no concession in this ugly world, to me, comes easy. There was a war fought to end slavery in this country. And the civil rights struggle still hasn't ended. People, protested in the streets over Black Lives Matter. Why isn't anybody protesting in the streets over Atheist Lives Matter? It's like, for some reason, I just think this part of a lot of our identity, and I guess because it goes up against the religion of people, which is a near and dear topic. It's a real sensitive subject. And then also because it puts us in many cases against the people that brought us up. Right. So, when you struggle against racism, it's like us versus them, and all the us is your family and friends. They're with you on that. Right. They're probably with you on wherever you identify in the class struggle or LGBT, all these other things, they're with you on it, right? But if it comes to atheism versus Christianity, all of a sudden you and your sweet aunt are probably not on the same page. But I don't think we're ever going to get the type of world in which atheism is normalized to the point that it's considered totally unacceptable to not have your atheist family member on the visitation list because they're atheist. If we keep being quiet about our atheism, it's the unfortunate reality I think we're all faced with. Our silence is the very thing that perpetuates the need for our silence.
My aunt and I.
Again, and quickly, I just want to say, not that that's the time for that conversation, right? Mm-hmm. But ideally, we would recognize this as a sort of impetus if we're going to reconsider this to do it early. I don't want to criticize somebody for not. Obviously, now is not the time, but you know what I mean in the bigger picture. Go ahead.
Well, for my aunt and I, we are, and I have many other cousins and things like that, and nieces and nephews. I'm lucky that I have their respect, even though we have a difference of opinions. They also have mine. That's why it still works. We're not disrespecting each other. We can have our fun, but it's not nasty. It's never nasty. My fiance, she's a believer. We have fun talking about religion. It's never nasty. I respect that she still believes in God and Jesus. And I find we aren't from the same country. I find the way that she believes, the things that she believes, I have an interest in that. Not because I want to adopt them, because I have an anthropological interest. Plus, she's my future wife. So I also want to, there's that part of me that wants to nurture her and take care of her and see that she has the space to be who she is uninterrupted, right? I don't need to change that about her any more than I need to change the religious views of my cousins or aunts or uncles. I think, and Wayne, you can speak to this far better than I can, and I'd appreciate it if you would. Can you tell me why you're afraid that they would shun you? There may be a very simple and plain reason, like if they were Jehovah's Witnesses, there's no question. Like that's what they're called to do. They're supposed to shun you. But maybe there's something else other than that, and I'd like to know if you're willing to share. I can't see the chat, Jay. I don't know where to look. So, but if you do see it,
who are you asking?
Wayne.
Okay, I'll see what he says. Yes, the cult of the flying man's a religion, and yes, the idea it was founded deliberately with that idea in mind. The fact that religious groups like the Satanists were able to oppose things like, I don't know, days of prayer or, anti-abortion laws and things like that because it violated their religion. And it bothered us that as atheists, we couldn't say that. And so the idea was to start an atheist church with humanist values. So we could say, when you do fucked up shit, it goes against the core tenets of my religion of the flying man, which values humanism, science, and critical thinking. So, yes, it's a humanist church. All right, who is that? Somebody that does not need to be answered, I don't think. Although it might have been Derek, because it's from Seattle. But yeah, we should wrap up because I have to go to my meeting at 5:30, and then I think I'm gonna probably come back and do something fun, maybe early in the evening. I'll try to get through church as quickly as I can, and then I'll have to do something to celebrate 500 plus subscribers. We need to mark all these milestones away, these little milestones along the way. And it's really interesting. Thank you so much again to Derek for
thanks everyone for tuning in.
for the appearance yesterday. And
and that, yes.
Yeah, we have got over on Pocket Locker. We have over 160 or something new subs since then, and so it's weird because we're gonna have to celebrate 500 sub party today, but we did 400 subs yesterday. You could. I'll tell you what, Pocket Locker, this week, who knows?
Send me an image of your receipt at Subway, and I will reimburse you 100% the cost of your sub.
Oh,
a drink and some chips.
I get my subs from Jersey Giant, but I will.
You can go to Jersey Giant.
Send
me a copy. Send me a photo of your receipt. You can get a large drink if you want.
Very kind of you.
And if you want to get like a cookie or some chips.
Thanks. I'm gonna get a giant sub on the house. Appreciate that. I appreciate that. All right, so we'll try to do that. I'll do that right after church, sort of before the game. So maybe that'll be 7 p.m. Easternish or something like that.
And your timing is perfect. I have to pee. So
all right. So any closing thoughts?
And each other. No, I'm kidding. I would like to thank you all for tuning in and supporting us. It has been a really fantastic year. I'm glad this is off the ground. My itch to broadcast has been scratched. Thank you to Pocket Locker for doing the heavy lifting, and AR for being there for us, and our other mods that have come along on this journey with us. I very much appreciate you all. And Merry Atheistmas.
Merry Atheistmas. Will you be with us next week? Are you traveling to see family?
I am traveling. I will be out of the country, but I'm darn sure going to try.
Great.
And the Wi-Fi there is
let us know. I'll be covering.
I will.
So I know Gin and Truth won't be here, but I will be. So let me know. Either way, it's okay.
I'll let you know.
Happy Atheistmas to everybody. As always, be good to yourselves
and each other.
In the name of Darwin and Dawkins and the Christopher Hitchens. Science bless y'all. See you later. Poof.
See you.
Well, that was nice.
All right. Thanks, my one black friend. Yeah. I think he dipped. All right, cool. Hey, Wayne.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah. Awesome. I need to run to little boy's room. I'll be right back.
Yeah, do you?
And then I gotta sign on for church.
Yeah, I'm gonna be over here just Van Negroing it up.
Feel you. That looks great, by the way.
I sure hope the client likes it, because his wife is really iffy on everything I do, but you know.
Victory, 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 victory. Strike and strike and strike and strike until you have victory.
I think it looks nice. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be something that they're like, all right, we're willing to move on to the next step. You know? That's it. Also, I didn't want to step on the main stage while you guys were doing your show. I respect your space for your show with your one black friend.